I sit rigidly in Mr. Hoffman's wood-paneled office, the leather chair cool against my palms as I grip the armrests. The probate lawyer's bow tie seems unnaturally straight against his wrinkled shirt as he adjusts his reading glasses and continues the recitation of Grandma Eleanor's will. To Bryce Hayes, I bequeath my downtown Chicago condominium property, currently valued at approximately $480,000. My brother's face remains perfectly composed, but the corner of his mouth twitches upward. The sound of papers shuffling fills the momentary silence. The grandfather clock in the corner ticks loudly, marking seconds that suddenly feel important somehow. To Marlene Hayes. Mr. Hoffman continues, his voice becoming strangely distant as though I'm hearing him underwater. I leave the family house in Ashridge Hollow, along with all its contents. The old house. The one nobody visited anymore. The one Bryce called that money pit when he thought I couldn't hear. Bryce leans toward me, his cologne sharp in my nostrils. Guess Grandma knew which one of us would make something of her legacy, he whispers, his breath warm against my ear. Mr. Hoffman clears his throat. Mrs. Hayes specifically requested that Marlene receive this property, and I quote, because she'll understand its true value. Something in his tone makes me look up. His eyes meet mine briefly over his glasses before returning to the document. Memories flash through my mind, summers spent with Grandma Eleanor while our parents traveled. Bryce complained of boredom while I helped her catalog her books, learning the difference between a first edition and a reprint. The careful way she handled each volume, teaching me to appreciate their smell, their weight, their history. I remember her funeral last month. Bryce held court in the reception area, describing his latest business triumph to relatives who nodded appreciatively. Me, standing alone by the guest book, watching people sign their names and leave without really seeing them through my tears. Just last week at the family dinner, Mom had patted Bryce's hand. Eleanor always knew you were the successful one, she'd said. I'm sure she's made arrangements accordingly. Everyone nodded, including Dean, including me. Back to the present, the meeting concludes with signatures and handshakes. In the parking lot, Bryce catches my elbow as I reach for my car door. Look, he says, voice softening to the tone he uses with difficult clients. That place is falling apart. Property taxes alone will drain whatever savings you have. He pulls out his checkbook. I'll give you $40,000 for it. Cash. Take the burden off your hands. I stare at the checkbook, my mouth suddenly dry. $40,000 for Grandma's home. The place where I'd learned to make bread, to identify bird calls, to love stories. He's right about one thing: I can't afford to keep it. Dean will say exactly what Bryce is saying. I want to see it first, I hear myself say, my voice steadier than I expect. It was Grandma's home. Bryce's smile tightens. Don't be sentimental, Marlene, it's just an old house. I pull my arm from his grasp. My answer is no. Not yet. My fingers close around the heavy iron keys Mr. Hoffman had placed in my palm. They stop trembling as I pocket them, a strange sense of purpose settling over me. When I call Dean that evening, his reaction is explosive. Your brother gets a $500,000 condo and you get a rotting house? Typical Marlene luck. He paces our small living room, running his hand through his thinning hair. Please tell me you're selling it to him. I want to see it first. See what? A money pit that'll drain what little we have saved? He stops pacing, his expression hardening. Listen to me. Either you sell that house to Bryce, or don't bother coming home. I stare at him, this man I've shared 8 years with, suddenly seeing the pattern of our life together with perfect clarity. How many times had he made my choices for me? How often had I yielded because it was easier than arguing? That night, I pack a suitcase while Dean sleeps. I take only what I need: clothes, toiletries, the photo album my grandmother made me, as I will stay at the hotel. As I zip the case closed, I realize how easily Dean dismissed not just my inheritance, but my feelings about it, about Grandma, about what might matter to me. I leave my key on the kitchen counter and walk out the front door. This is the fight I am going to fight alone. The morning sunlight catches dust motes dancing in our apartment as I finish packing the next day after I spent a night in the hotel. Dean left early for work without saying goodbye. His dismissal of my inheritance still stings, but something compels me to check his phone, forgotten on the nightstand. I never do this, have never felt the need, but today feels different. My thumb hovers over the screen. One swipe reveals everything. A text thread with someone named Jessie appears. Once she sells that dump, we'll have money for our trip. She always does what she's told eventually. My legs buckle. I sink onto our bed, surrounded by half-packed clothes, my fingers trembling against the bright screen. More messages scroll upward, plans spanning months, weekend getaways. Inside jokes. A photo I force myself to look at then wish I hadn't. Dean has been waiting for an opportunity to leave, seeing my inheritance as his ticket out. I look around our bedroom with new eyes. 8 years in this apartment, yet I count only 3 personal items that are truly mine. A faded photo of Grandma Eleanor and me on her porch swing, a small pottery bowl I made in college, and the silver locket around my neck. Everything else belongs to Dean or was chosen to please him. How did I become so invisible in my own life? Later, the bus station bench feels cold beneath me as Tara checks her watch for the 3rd time in 10 minutes. Her heels click against the concrete floor as she paces before me. "You're being impulsive," she says, glancing toward the arrival board. "Dean made a mistake, but throwing away your marriage over an old house is crazy." I clutch my single suitcase closer. "Did you know about Jesse?" The hesitation before she answers tells me everything. Her shoulders drop slightly. "It wasn't serious," Tara finally says, not meeting my eyes. "Men get restless sometimes. If you'd been more attentive to his needs." "How long have you known?" My voice sounds stronger than I feel. "Marlene, don't make this about me." She sighs dramatically. "Your parents called this morning. They're worried you're having some kind of breakdown. They think you should stop being difficult with Bryce." Each revelation lands like a physical blow. My parents, my best friend, my husband. Bryce offered $40,000. Tara continues, her voice softening to the tone she uses with her kindergarten students. "That's real money, Marlene. Your ticket today took almost everything you had left." I check my bank balance on my phone. After the bus ticket, $237.18 remaining. Maybe Bryce is right. Tara says, placing a manicured hand on my shoulder. "You're not equipped to handle property. Be reasonable for once." The words echo the same sentiment I've heard my entire life. Be reasonable. Don't make waves. Accept what you're given. I've been reasonable for 42 years, and what has it gotten me? A husband planning his escape, a best friend who kept his secrets, parents who side with my brother. When I see the bigger picture like this, I realize I was all alone my whole life. The betrayal is sharp, yet I will keep my peace at all cost. My fingers find Grandma Eleanor's silver locket, the metal warm against my skin. Inside is a tiny photograph of her standing proudly in front of the Ashridge Hollow house. I'd always loved how confident she looked in that picture, a woman who knew her own mind. If the house is truly uninhabitable as everyone claims, I'll have nowhere to go. No job, barely any money, no support system. The weight of potential homelessness presses down, making each breath shallow. The station's overhead speaker announces my bus. Tara looks relieved. "Call me when you come to your senses," she says, already turning to leave. "Don't be stubborn about this, Marlene." I watch her walk away, her exit marking the severing of yet another tie I thought unbreakable. The elderly bus driver smiles as he takes my ticket, his weathered face creasing into familiar lines. Ashridge Hollow? Don't get many folks heading there these days. I nod, unable to form words past the tightness in my throat. "Beautiful old houses there," he continues, surprising me. "Built to last, not like these cardboard places they throw up now. Your grandma's place on Sycamore Lane?" "You knew my grandmother?" Hope flickers the first all day. "Eleanor Hayes?" He chuckles. Everybody knew Eleanor. Sharpest woman in 3 counties. Had that big Victorian with the wraparound porch. He hands me back my ticket stub. "That's a fine house. Got good bones." As the bus pulls away from the station, the landscape gradually shifts from urban sprawl to gentle countryside. Through the window, I watch my familiar world recede, replaced by rolling hills and open sky. As the landscape grew more rural, I wondered if I was being brave or foolish. Everyone in my life thought I was making a terrible mistake, but something about Grandma Eleanor's final wish pulled me forward. Would you trust your instincts even when everyone tells you you're wrong, or would you play it safe and take the guaranteed money? 3 days later, my phone buzzed for the 3rd time this morning. Bryce again. I let it go to voicemail, then listen with the phone held away from my ear as if his words might physically harm me. "Marlene, this is ridiculous. Call me back or I'm contacting my attorney about contesting the will." Grandma clearly wasn't in her right mind. His voice drops to what he probably thinks sounds reasonable. "I'm worried about you." I delete the message and set the phone on the kitchen counter, my fingers trembling slightly. It's the 5th call this week, each one escalating from concern to threatening. When I venture into town for groceries later, the taxi driver, a weathered man with kind eyes, glances at me in the rearview mirror. "You staying at the old Hayes place?" "Yes, it was my grandmother's." He nods. "Nice lady, your grandma. Had a fancy man from Chicago asking about that property yesterday. Seemed mighty interested." My stomach tightens. "Tall? Expensive watch? Perfect hair?" "That's the one. Said he inherited it recently." The driver raises an eyebrow. Didn't sound right to me. At the local real estate office, a flyer in the window stops me cold. My grandmother's house, listed as coming soon. The contact, Jessica Winters, with Bryce Hayes noted as the owner. I snatch it down, crushing it in my fist. Back at the house, reality settles in harshly. The kitchen light flickers when I flip the switch, and the pipes groan when I turn on the faucet. In the basement, the ancient electrical panel looks like something from a museum, with fabric-covered wiring and ceramic fuses. A plumber's estimate sits on the counter, $4,300 for essential repairs. That night, the house creaks and settles around me. Wind whistles through gaps in the window frames, and shadows stretch across unfamiliar walls. I curl under a musty quilt in my grandmother's bed, doubting every decision that led me here. "What were you thinking, Eleanor?" I whisper to the darkness. "I can't afford to fix this place. I can't even afford to heat it properly." My voice sounds small in the empty room. Maybe they're right. Maybe I should sell. Morning brings a steely resolve. I make a methodical inventory of each room, clipboard in hand, noting issues but also strengths. The foundation is solid. The roof, recently replaced. The wooden floors, though scratched, are oak expensive to replicate today. The house has good bones, as my grandmother would say. While I am working, a knock at the door startles me. Outside stands a plump woman with silver hair and a covered dish in her hands. "Mabel Thornton," she announces, extending the dish. "I live next door. Thought you might like some peach cobbler. Still warm." "Thank you." The unexpected kindness brings heat to my eyes. "I'm Marlene." "Oh, I know who you are. Eleanor showed me all your letters." Mabel follows me inside without waiting for an invitation. "Your grandmother never missed my birthday in 60 years. She believed in treasuring connections, not just things." Later, while on the phone with my mother, I run my hand along the wood paneling in the study. Her voice drips with familiar disappointment. "Bryce says the place isn't even worth the land it's on. Stop being stubborn, Marlene." My fingers catch on something, a slight depression in the paneling that doesn't match the rest of the wall. "I'm not being stubborn," I reply, tracing what feels like the outline of a door. "I'm being patient." "Patient?" she scoffs. "You've always had your head in the clouds. This is just another—" "Mom, I need to go." I press the end button and set the phone down. The outline is unmistakable now, a door, concealed within the paneling. My heart pounds as I press against different sections, looking for a mechanism. When I push against a small knothole, something clicks. The panel swings inward on silent hinges, revealing darkness beyond. I fumble for my phone's flashlight. The beam illuminates shelf after shelf of books, hundreds of them extending back into a hidden room the size of a small bedroom. Glass display cases line one wall, containing maps under protective coverings. On another wall, shadow boxes display artifacts with small, handwritten labels. First editions, signed copies. Books I recognize from literature classes and others bound in leather with gilt lettering. A copy of Walden with a dedication from Thoreau himself. A collection of maps dating back to colonial America. Tears fill my eyes as I understand. This is why Eleanor left me the house. This collection, carefully preserved, meticulously cataloged, was her true legacy. She trusted me with it because she knew I would see its value beyond a price tag. I run my fingers lightly over the spines, feeling the connection to her in each carefully preserved volume. The next day, Mabel introduces me to Eli Boone, a local carpenter with calloused hands and a quiet manner. "Been helping your grandmother maintain this place for years," he explains, examining the loose banister I mentioned. "She never wanted that brother of yours to know I was doing the work. Said he'd just try to sell if he knew the place was in good shape." That evening, my phone rings with an unfamiliar number. "Marlene Hayes?" "This is Hank Whitlock from Whitlock's Rare Books in Boston. Eleanor was a dear friend. Mabel told me about her passing, and that you've inherited the house." His voice warms. And I'm guessing by now you've found her collection? I photograph several of the rarest-looking volumes and email them to Hank at his request. His response comes within minutes, a single line. Don't move anything. This is an extraordinary find. I'm sending an expert tomorrow. As darkness falls, headlights sweep across the front yard. A car door slams, followed by heavy footsteps on the porch and Bryce's voice loud and demanding. Marlene, open up. We need to talk right now. I guide Bryce through the foyer of Grandma Eleanor's house, watching his eyes dart around the entryway. His polished loafers click against the hardwood floors as I deliberately lead him toward the kitchen. The plumbing needs work, I say, turning the faucet to demonstrate a persistent drip. And the electrical system probably hasn't been updated since the 70s. Bryce runs his finger along the countertop, grimacing at the dust that collects. This place is worse than I thought. The property taxes alone will bankrupt you in a year. I nod solemnly while discreetly tapping the voice recorder app on my phone in my pocket. Every dismissive comment, every condescending remark, all preserved for later. I've learned something important since arriving here. Evidence matters. The upstairs bedrooms have good bones, but the wallpaper is peeling. I continue, guiding him up the creaking staircase. As we pass the library door, I casually slide the antique brass key into my pocket. The smooth metal feels cool against my palm, a small victory. Marlene, be reasonable. Bryce sighs heavily, the same tone he used when explaining why I shouldn't apply to graduate school years ago. This house is literally falling apart around you. What exactly do you think Grandma left you here? Memories, I suppose, I answer, watching his face carefully. Nothing in his expression suggests he knows about the books. His frustration grows with each room we enter, confirming what I suspected he sees only decay where I've discovered treasure. When we reach the attic, Bryce wipes sweat from his forehead. Look, I'm trying to help you. I've already scheduled Wilson and Sons Auction Company to clear out this junk next Tuesday. They'll take everything off your hands, we'll sell the property, and you'll walk away with some cash instead of a mountain of repairs. I freeze, my hand gripping the doorframe. You scheduled an auction company? For my inheritance? Our inheritance, he corrects, not noticing how my voice has changed. Family property that should benefit us both. I'm just being proactive. You have no legal right to schedule anything, I say quietly. The will was perfectly clear. Bryce waves his hand dismissively. A technicality. I've already spoken with Dad's attorney about contesting. The sound of tires on gravel interrupts him. Through the attic window, I watch a white sheriff's vehicle pull into the driveway. Did you call the police? Bryce demands, his confidence faltering for the first time. I didn't need to. Sheriff Walter Reed stands on the porch when we open the front door, his weathered face serious beneath his hat. Afternoon, folks. Got a call from Mabel Thornton about suspicious activity at Eleanor's place. His eyes settle on Bryce. You must be the grandson from Chicago. Bryce Hayes, my brother confirms, extending his hand. Just visiting my sister and discussing family matters. Nothing suspicious happening here. That so? The sheriff doesn't take Bryce's hand. Mabel mentions something about auction trucks showing up next week without the owner's permission. There's been a misunderstanding, Bryce says smoothly. My sister and I are co-inheritors. Actually, I interrupt, pulling out a copy of the will from my pocket. I'm the sole owner of this property and its contents. My brother received Grandma's downtown condo. Sheriff Reed reviews the document, nodding slowly. Seems straightforward to me, Mr. Hayes. And Mrs. Hayes specifically noted that everything in this house belongs to Marlene. Small-town politics, Bryce mutters. My father's attorney will need to file proper legal paperwork. The sheriff finishes. Until then, any auction companies or removal services showing up here without Miss Hayes' written permission will be turned away. That clear? Bryce's jaw tightens as he looks between us. Crystal, I'll be in touch, Marlene. He stalks to his rental car without another word. As his taillights disappear down the driveway, I exhale slowly. Sheriff Reed tips his hat. Eleanor was good people. Helped my mother when she was sick years back. You need anything, you call the station directly. After he leaves, I stand on the porch, watching the sunset paint the old maple trees gold. I've won this skirmish, but at what cost? The secret of Grandma's library weighs on me. Having it gives me power, but keeping it alone feels isolating. Should I trust these new connections or protect Grandma's legacy myself? The decision comes sooner than expected. As dusk deepens, A slender figure slips through Mabel's connecting backyard. Julian Roth, rare book expert and Mabel's nephew, arrives with a leather satchel and cautious eyes. "My aunt says you have something I should see," he says quietly as I welcome him inside. In the library, Julian moves with reverence, white-gloved hands carefully lifting first editions from their shelves. He examines each volume methodically, his whispered commentary growing more excited with each discovery. "This Thoreau alone," he murmurs, "conservatively worth 6 figures. And this Shakespeare quarto." He stops, looking up at me. "Your grandmother assembled one of the finest private collections I've seen. There are museums that would build entire wings around what's in this room." "Can you document it?" I ask. "For insurance and authentication?" Julian nods. "I can start tomorrow. With proper documentation, you'll have legal protection against anyone challenging your ownership." He carefully returns the books to their shelves, but pauses at a slim volume. "There's something tucked inside this one." He extracts a sealed envelope with my name written in Grandma Eleanor's elegant script. My phone rings as I'm reaching for it. Dean's number flashes on the screen. I hesitate, then answer. "Marlene? Listen, I've been thinking about our situation." Dean says, his voice unnaturally warm. "How's our inheritance looking? Maybe I was hasty before." I watch Julian carefully document another priceless volume. "It's exactly what Grandma intended it to be," I reply, fingering the unopened letter. "But it's not what you think." Outside, the evening light fades, but for the first time since arriving, I don't feel alone in the gathering darkness. I will protect Grandma's legacy, my legacy, and ensure the peace I deserve. Next Wednesday, while I am collecting documents to confront them, Bryce's silver Audi crunches over the gravel driveway, parking directly behind my weathered Honda. I watch from the parlor window as Dean unfolds himself from the passenger seat, his familiar posture somehow foreign now. They approach side by side, their identical navy suits looking absurdly formal against the rustic backdrop of Grandma Eleanor's Victorian home. I open the door before they knock. "This is a surprise." "Marlene," Bryce says, forcing a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. "We thought it was time we talked, face to face." Dean hovers half a step behind my brother, his gaze darting past me to scan the entryway. Looking for valuables, no doubt, or signs of disrepair to strengthen their case. "May we come in?" Dean asks, his voice unnaturally gentle. I step aside without answering, leading them to the sitting room where Mabel had brought pie just days before. I've cleared away the worst of the dust, but deliberately left certain cobwebs in corners. Let them see what they expect to see. Bryce sits on the edge of the sofa, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. "We've been talking, Marlene. This situation doesn't have to be adversarial." "What situation would that be?" I keep my voice neutral, my hands steady. "This inheritance mess," Dean interjects. "We should be working together, not against each other." Bryce nods. "Exactly. I'm proposing we sell everything: the house, the contents, the land, and split the proceeds 3 ways. Equal partners." "Equal?" I raise an eyebrow. "When did you start believing in equality, Bryce? You got a $500,000 condo while I got what you called a money pit." Dean leans forward. "We're trying to be reasonable here. This place." He gestures vaguely at the ceiling where water stains mark the corner. "It's a liability, Marlene. Old houses like this have unfortunate accidents all the time. Electrical fires, foundation issues. The threat hangs in the air between us." Bryce's smile tightens. "We're looking out for your best interests." "My best interests," I repeat, rising from my chair. "Funny how those suddenly matter to you both." I walk to the roll-top desk in the corner, feeling their eyes track my movement. My fingers tremble slightly as I pull out the cream-colored envelope with my name written in Grandma Eleanor's distinctive script. "Before you arrived, I was reading this," I say, extracting the letter. "Grandma left it for me. Would you like to hear what it says?" Dean and Bryce exchange glances. "To my dearest Marlene," I read aloud. "I leave you this house not as a burden, but as a trust. To the one who values legacy over luxury, knowledge over status. You alone among our family will understand what I've spent my lifetime collecting." I watch their faces as I continue. "The books are the treasure, my dear. Not just for their monetary worth, though that is considerable, but for the history they contain. History our family has forgotten to honor." Bryce shifts uncomfortably. "What books?" I place the letter down and pick up the leather folder Julian had prepared. These books, Bryce. I open the folder, revealing photographs and detailed descriptions of 10 volumes from Grandma's hidden library. Julian's preliminary appraisal is paperclipped to each entry. First edition Thoreau, signed. Estimated value, $380,000. I say, sliding the page toward them. First printing of Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby with dust jacket. Estimated value, $215,000. Dean's mouth falls open as I continue through the list. When I reach the final entry, a collection of handwritten correspondence between Thomas Jefferson and John Adams valued at $875,000, Bryce's face has drained of color. Just these 10 items are worth over $2 million, according to Julian Roth from Christie's Pardoned, and there are hundreds more in the library. Library? Dean sputters. What library? The one behind the hidden door in the study. The one Grandma showed me every summer while you were too busy with your phone calls, Bryce. The one she'd been building for decades. I stand taller, feeling a strange lightness in my chest. Grandma knew exactly what she was doing. She gave each of us what we truly valued. You got property, Bryce, a commodity to leverage. I got knowledge and history, things you repeatedly dismissed as worthless. A knock at the front door breaks the tension. I check my watch, right on time. That'll be Julian, I say, along with Sheriff Reed and Mabel. Sheriff? Dean looks panicked. I lead them through the house to the study where Mabel is already serving coffee to Julian and Sheriff Reed. The hidden door stands open, revealing rows of illuminated bookshelves. Julian nods respectfully. Miss Hayes, I've completed the documentation as requested. I thank him, then turn to my brother and husband. I've asked you here today to formally present you with these papers. I hand each of them an envelope. Cease and desist orders against any attempt to contest the will or claim ownership of this property or its contents. Bryce tears his open, scanning the document with growing rage. This is absurd. She was clearly not in her right mind. You manipulated an old woman. I have Eleanor's detailed records right here. Julian interrupts, patting a leather-bound ledger. Acquisition dates, provenance, values, some dating back 30 years. This collection wasn't assembled overnight, Mr. Hayes. Sheriff Reed clears his throat. Eleanor showed me this room 5 years ago when she updated her home security. Said she was leaving it to someone who'd understand its true value. He looks pointedly at Bryce. Seemed perfectly sound of mind to me. Bryce's face contorts with fury. You can't possibly manage this collection. You're barely managing your own life. That's where you're wrong, I say quietly. You saw a worthless old house. She saw someone who would protect what matters. Dean steps forward, his tone conciliatory. Marlene, honey, we can work this out. Our marriage... I remove my wedding ring and place it on the table between us. I found something more valuable than false promises, Dean. Later that evening, after they've all gone, I sit alone in the library. Rumors are already spreading through town about the collection's true worth, some claiming it exceeds $5 million. Questions remain about how to properly preserve these treasures while honoring Eleanor's legacy. My fingers trace the spines of books that witnessed centuries of human experience. Tomorrow, I'll need to meet with Julian about insurance and preservation methods. The responsibility feels enormous, but no longer frightening. As I rise to leave, my heel catches on a slightly raised floorboard. Kneeling to examine it, I discover a small brass ring. When pulled, it reveals a hidden floor safe, containing a stack of historic deeds and documents I've never seen before. Grandma's secrets, it seems, run even deeper than I imagined. And I'm going to discover them. 6 months later, I stand in the foyer of what is now called the Eleanor Hayes Historical Collection, watching as a group of visitors files through the double doors. Sunlight streams through freshly cleaned windows, illuminating the polished hardwood floors Eleanor always kept immaculate. My voice carries confidently through the rooms as I lead the tour. This first edition Thoreau was part of my grandmother's initial collection. I explain, gesturing toward the glass case where the book rests on a custom stand. Notice the unique binding pattern. Only 50 copies were ever produced with this specific craftsmanship. A professor from Northwestern University nods appreciatively, jotting notes. Last month, he would have dismissed me as uninformed. Today, he's requesting an interview for his research on private American collections. 6 months ago, I was Marlene Hayes, family disappointment. Now, historical societies and universities contact me weekly about the preservation methods Eleanor documented in her journals. The woman my family dismissed as merely sentimental had been quietly building one of the most significant private collections in the Midwest. During a fundraiser to support the collection's maintenance, a young woman approaches me while others mingle around the refreshment table Mabel arranged. "How did you learn so much about all this?" she asks, gesturing toward the library. "Did you study rare books in college?" I would have stammered an apology for my lack of credentials once. In Mr. Hoffman's office, I might have deferred to Bryce's assessment of value. But now my answer comes without hesitation. My grandmother left meticulous notes about every acquisition. I explain, running my fingers along the leather, bound ledger open beside me. She documented provenance, historical context, and preservation techniques. I've spent a year studying her methods and consulting with experts who respect her work. The woman looks impressed. "You've created something remarkable here." My grandmother taught me that true wealth isn't what you own, it's what you understand and preserve. I reply, the words flowing naturally now. Some value only what can be quickly converted to cash. Others recognize the worth in what endures. Later that evening, I hosted a small dinner in the renovated dining room. Eli Boone, whose carpentry skills saved the original ceiling beams, raises his glass. Mabel sits beside him, her laughter brightening the room as it has since my first day here. Julian, who helped authenticate the collection, and Hank, who traveled from Boston to celebrate, complete our circle. To Eleanor, Mabel says, lifting her glass, her true legacy wasn't just these books but bringing together people who value the same things. Our glasses clink in the warm light. That night, I sit at Eleanor's desk in the library, now my desk too. My laptop glows as I type the first chapter of a book chronicling the collection's history. Beside me lies the grant approval letter establishing a permanent foundation to maintain the collection. On the wall hang architectural plans for expanding the historical center into the carriage house. I placed Eleanor's silver locket beside the framed photograph of us in this very library 20 years ago, me on her lap as she read from Walden, neither of us knowing then that she was planting seeds that would bloom into my future. As I write the dedication to my grandmother, I wonder if she had known all along what awaited me here. Some inheritances come with dollar values, while others offer purpose and identity. What would you choose? Immediate wealth that others expect you to take, or an uncertain path that might lead to something more meaningful?